Well, it's another day, and going to be back on her again. I'm going to start adding the beadwork to the bottom part of her dress, and touching up places that have been damaged over the years. Just, you know, being moved around and stuff in my studio and at my house. But anyway, I'm going to get started right now, and hopefully I can get most of this done today. Hopefully, I say. What I'm doing is I'm backfilling the fringe. I can't have tons of fringe hanging out there loose. It just does not cast. It makes it very hard for the caster, and if you insist on getting every little fringe cast and hanging out there loose, well, first of all, they're going to kick you out of the foundry because they're not going to waste their time and effort, because that ties up their time trying to fill or to do that kind of detail. And I understand that, and so I'm backfilling it with clay. You can't see it if you do it right, and it saves tons of moolah. Okay, I have a comment. I'm not less of an artist because I take the criticism from somebody else. Now, I'm free to take criticism, and I'm also free not to take it. Now, if I take the criticism, and it's a good one, in other words, it's pointing out something that may not be right, well, I consider that a blessing. But criticisms of me taking criticism because someone thinks that I'm a master, not a master, I'm just a sculptor. And I'm still learning. I mean, I'll be learning till the day I die. And it never hurts to have somebody give their opinion of a piece that I'm working on. Whether I take that opinion and use it is up to me. Now, I had one YouTuber who's an artist. They gave me a criticism of the head, the forehead, and the back of the head of the Indian girl. And they were absolutely right. Now, does that make the sculpture less? It doesn't make it less, it just makes it better. It points out something I wasn't seeing. I fixed that problem. The person that saw it didn't fix it, I fixed it. They just pointed out something I wasn't seeing. Now, I had an uncle. I still have an uncle. He's a distant uncle, and he's related. See, I'm from a Mormon lineage. And my great-great-grandfather was a wheelwright. And he settled the Salt Lake Valley with Brigham Young back in 1847. He came across the prairie on a covered wagon. He had several wives. That was practiced by the Mormon Church back then. It is not practiced by the Mormon Church now. The reorganized Mormons practices it, but they're all excommunicated from the Mormon Church because they practice it. And anyway, I'm related to this real famous sculptor in Utah who's nationally known, and internationally known for that matter. He just got done working on a monumental sculpture of a wagon train down in Oklahoma. Spent years working on that thing. At one point back in 1981 or 80, right after President Reagan was elected president the first time, he was asked or commissioned to do a portrait of President Reagan in clay and then into bronze. Now, I'd been taking instructions from this artist, this distant cousin or uncle, for quite a while. And when I went to his studio to show him a clay of mine, he didn't have much to say about my clay because he couldn't find anything really wrong with it that required him talking to me about it. And then he said, "Want to come and take a look at what I'm working on?" And I said, "Sure." And so he took me into his studio, and he's working on a bust of Reagan. There was a life mask of President Reagan right next to the sculpture, the bust that he was working on that was life-size. President Reagan-elect, President Reagan-elect, yeah. President Reagan, right after he was elected, flew out to Utah, went to my uncle's studio, was in a room with my uncle while my uncle made a plaster casting of President Reagan's face. And that's what he worked on, because he couldn't have President Reagan actually sitting there while he worked on the piece. He had to make a life mask. Abraham Lincoln had a life mask. Actually, he had 2 life masks made of himself. I've got one at my studio. They made a life mask of his hands. Or not a life mask, but a castings of his hands as well. And that's a sculptor's tool. If somebody can't be there for a sculpture, to sit for a sculpture, then the artist works from a plaster casting of that person. Well, when I looked at the clay that my uncle was working on, he asked me what I thought of it, if I saw anything that didn't look right. And I looked at the thing, and I saw that immediately that the hairline was just a little too close to the forehead, to the eyebrows of President Reagan. According to the life mask, anyway, and photographs he had of the president himself. And my uncle looked at it and he says, "You know, you're right." And he fixed it. Now, did that make my uncle less of an artist? No. Did it make the work he was working on less of a piece of work? No. It helped improve it. So what? I didn't gloat over the fact that I told him that. I don't mind taking criticism. I've got a thick skin. I've taken criticism for years from all kinds of people. Now, I don't take all criticism, and I don't use it. But when I hear a criticism and I look at the piece and I see what they're talking about, and if I think it's going to improve the piece, you darn right I'll fix it. Eventually I've got to sell these things. And if I'm doing something that I don't see that is wrong, then I want to know about it. I have an artist friend who paints. I go to his studio all the time. He's always asking me for my opinion on his work. I give it. He uses it or he doesn't use it. That's up to him. Does that make him less of an artist? No. I'm not going to comment anymore on that sort of thing. And if anybody has a comment or a criticism about something that I'm working on, something they see that I'm not seeing, I don't mind hearing from them. I don't ask for it. But if you want to do that, send me a private message. Don't put it in the body of the video because, quite honestly, the comment area of the video, because, quite honestly, some people get real sensitive about things like that. They look at me as a master, which I'm not. I'm just a struggling artist like anybody else. Just been at it a little bit longer. All right, well, that's going to be it for today. I'll video some more of me working today, and then I'll add it to the video for tomorrow. And we'll see if we can't get this done. I'm going to go through my research right now and check to see the dress design for this particular tribe. This is a Plains Indian dress, and it dates, so I would think probably 1820s, 30s, 40s. I mean, they were making these style dresses even up to the 50s and towards the end of the century, for that matter. It was a traditional dress. About 1804, the dresses changed to this style of dress. Before that, they were just kind of like a wrap, a leather wrap, or just a sacky-looking dress. But this style started kicking in, and yeah, they had style changes, and still do. All right, that will be it for today.